right, welcome back, traders and investors. This is Benzinga's pre-market prep. This is Garrett Cook sitting in for Joel Elkan. And on the line with me, I have Kiana Danial. She's the CEO of Invest Diva. Kiana, welcome to the show.
Hi. Good morning.
How are you doing? Are you relishing in all this chaos that's taking place overseas? I hope you're in position and you have some confidence going
The funny
forward.
thing is I was actually writing China when we had that data dump from China. I just came back. That's why I have like a bit of a jet lag, so I'm like completely messed up. But while I was there, all these stuff in Asia happened, like the snap election in Japan happened, Chinese data came in lower than expected, and so there are plenty of opportunity for especially Forex traders who look for risk in the markets.
So how about those elections? What do you think the impact is going to be now that Prime Minister Abe is back in for the foreseeable future, and it seems like we're going to be dealing with Abenomics? What's your views on Japan?
Yeah, so the Abenomics will carry on, obviously, and the ones who are confident in his policies and Abe's policies, they're going to be excited. Interesting that I was talking to one of my Japanese professors in China who was meeting me. He was telling me that actually the Japanese emperor doesn't like Abe, and people think that the Japanese emperor has no power, and he was telling me that this is wrong, and he's trying his best to get rid of him, and it is interesting that he's back in power, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the emperor is very interested in the Japanese military, and so, but now this time, Abe seems like he's going to strengthen actually the Japanese military, which is going to again have an impact in the Japanese markets and globally, especially as well. So we can see some movements as we see those announcements coming along. We can see some movements in the dollar yen. Other things that can happen with the Abenomics coming on, well, the things that everybody was expecting were the adjustments in government spending, monetary easing from the Bank of Japan, and also they are expecting reopening the nuclear reactors. So the big question is, will the Japanese yen become weaker after this, right? And so there is, again, like a good and a bad with the weak Japan for Japanese economy, and because they're heavily dependent on export industry, that could be actually a good scenario. So we could see actually some more weakness coming on in Japan later on. Right now we're seeing a pullback after it touched the highs of 121, which was like a 5-year high since 2008. So technically and fundamentally, this totally makes sense because Abe wins and Japan is getting started. And technically, if you look at the dollar-yen chart, I'm sorry if I'm like just talking so passionately about it because I love the dollar-yen.
No,
but if you look at the dollar-yen chart, you can see that it wasn't a strong uptrend, and then it hit a top, and we were expecting technically as well that it pulls back because, you know, market trades in the cycles. So I'm actually foreseeing the market to go down to, well, it already surpassed the 117, but we're seeing that it goes back to 50% Fibonacci level, like 150 level, or maybe even in this level, it could snap back up.
Uh-oh, we just lost her. All right, looks like we had a problem there. Sorry, listeners. We appear to have lost our connection with Kiana. Let's see what we can do about getting her back on the air here. We'll just get a quick check while I got a minute here for you guys. It looks like the S&P 500 E-mini futures have rebounded from those lows just below 1970 on this morning. We're back up around 1972. We're going to continue to kind of see what moves go out here as we enter into the morning market open here.
Yep, and I'm looking over. Joe is most definitely trying to get Kiana back online. Garrett, we did have some pretty decent-sized news items come out as you were interviewing some guests there. Let me go over just a couple of these while we got a quick second. So we're just recently announcing a Visteon deal to sell its ownership interest in Hala Visteon. This is a 70% ownership interest in the company. This is going to be about a $3.6 billion deal. The ticker on Visteon, Garrett, is VC. I'd like you to pull up that chart.
Thank you, buddy.
Please.
That's what I was just going into my trusty Pro to grab and take a look at what the ticker is here. Oh, my goodness. The stock's up about $5, almost $6 this morning, shooting up from just below 96 to, oh, here we go a little bit further. So now we're looking at about $9. We're up at a high of 103.5 here Yeah, guys are getting hot this morning. It seems like there's a lot of movement. If you're not in position for some of these big macro moves, it seems like you're just jumping around on the little ones. This is good. This is strong.
A lot of major moves definitely here this morning, and did want to highlight just a couple of. Oh,
Oop,
sounds like we're getting Kiana back. Maybe.
let's see what we can do here.
Greg.
Kiana, it's Garrett. Sorry, Kiana. We're we're back live again. We just had to connect back with you. I apologize for that there.
Oh, no problem. It happens.
So let's.
I don't know how much you were hearing because I was going on about Japanese yen, and I don't know when we got disconnected.
We were getting to the point just kind of talking about some of the future with Abenomics and the success that's going to be happening over there is like an Abe win and R win, and you were discussing the technical levels in the USD and
Right,
JPY
right,
at this
right.
point.
Okay, yeah. So you heard the technical level. So yeah, we were expecting this pullback to happen, and it could actually be reversing because today we saw like some strength in the dollar again. So about this level, like 117 to 115 level, we could see the pullback to come again on the dollar yen pair, and we can see more strength in the dollar yen towards 121 or even higher, 124. Some people say it's not going to see 124; it's going to just consolidate around 121. But basically, the thing is, well, in 2 years, Abe didn't have enough time to do all he wanted to do. Now he has another 2 years. In those 2 years, we saw Japan, well, consolidated for a while, but then we saw the improvements in the dollar yen, which means yen got weaker. Some people didn't like it because consumer spending was a shock. Japanese people, like when something happens there, they get very surprised and they're like, oh my God, we don't know what to do. It was like 5 years ago when they had these levels, right? So some people were kind of not happy with the levels because consumer spending was not ready for it. But now that they're seeing Abe is coming back, so they might actually be even happier about the levels, and we could go back to what we had in 2007 before the market crash.
So, Kiana, let me ask you then, with all these dynamics seemingly taking place under the macro level, kind of more I mean, it's macro events, but they seem like, individually exclusive events. Is it easier to, when you're looking at Japan, is it easier to basically just take a position on the currency versus another pair as opposed to directly investing in a company or, allocating resources to a specific sector or industry within the country? Is it just so confusing internally?
That's a great question, and it really depends on what kind of a trader you are. I am a forex trader. I'm starting to trade ETFs and not only stocks. And in the micro level, I'm very risk averse. And if you want to put all your eggs in one company, is that what your question is? Am I getting it wrong? Right? So, going in and investing in, for example, one of the companies on Nikkei or one company in Japan, I am not that kind of a trader. That's why I like actually macro trading better because it kind of balances off with other things because we are not the governments. We are traders. No matter how brilliant we say we are still following the news. We might get some insider information here and there, but most of the times we just have to follow the market sentiment, right? And the market sentiment, these are traders who get optimistic and pessimistic in a snap, right? So I rather basically look at the markets as a whole. So even if I want to trade Japanese Nikkei, right, I would trade it as like I would bundle a bunch of markets together and trade that so that if one of those markets go completely wrong, the other ones will balance it out. And I actually do rely on the technicals a little bit because the market sentiment does have a say on the direction of the markets, I believe. So it's not only fundamentals and the news that you hear.
Okay, all right. Well, Kiana, let me pivot then a bit from Japan because Russia's been a crazy interest of mine, and we were talking earlier about Russia with Ann this morning just before we brought you on, and I kind of wanted to get your input just to bring it up to the traders. I was reading last night Russian imports from various different regions, China, Germany, Ukraine. They're looking at about 324 billion. And as far as foreign lenders, there's about 670 billion being lent over to Russia. What do you see with what's going on right now with the collapse of the currency, their decision to raise the interest rate yet not really support the currency through their finance ministry? What do What's the dynamic? What do you see coming out of Russia here? What do you think's going on?
So Russia is heavily dependent on oil and energy. I think that is one of the most important reasons why ruble followed the footsteps of oil, because you know that oil is continues going down, right? And we have talked. I think we talked about this with Joel last month, why oil is going down, and so. Well, yeah. When Russia's currency lost about 10%, everybody panicked, and So right now, I mean, what is going to come up with Russia, because it is very political. So it is the sanctions, and the officials had hoped that this aggressive monetary policy would help stabilize the currency, but everybody was surprised, obviously, that it failed to do so. And instead, it spread more panic in the financial markets, triggering a spike in Russian bond yields. And everything is completely chaotic, a massive loss in value of banks. And so what is going to come up, I think ruble is going to, because we're going to see more slit on the oil prices, I think we're going to see even more crisis coming up in Russia, because the U.S. Is going to continue its sanctions on it, because it's basically a very political system over it. This is not a war between currencies anymore. This is a political war and geopolitical war, right? So I think Russia is in trouble. I do not trade the Russian currency because I think it is way too risky. But for those who do, I would bet against it.
What other currencies have you seen that have been impacted based on Russia? I think I was reading yesterday. What was it? The krona fell into parity with the Swiss franc.
Yeah,
And
well,
stuff?
yesterday's event announcement came as a shock. So, euro was kind of trembling. It was going. There was a volatility in so many different currencies at the time yesterday, but today everything kind of stabilized, because so when a panic happens, everybody panics. But right now, I think everybody just took in the news and they're going back to the normal, the other currencies. That's what I'm talking about. So their normal way of trading. But yesterday it was crazy, obviously.
Do you have any views on oil then, specifically with the way? I mean, what do you see happening here as far as Russia goes? Do we continue lower with oil, and Russia does eventually default? I mean, their CDS rates are what they were back in, I think it was late 2008. So there's, the market's trying to price in a higher probability of default than they have over the past 5 years.
So oil keeps going down, and the reasons why, there are a number of reasons why. Saudi Arabia adjust their prices, right? And they lowered their prices. And one of the reasons why, I'm not sure if you've heard of, I mean, of course you've had, one of the reasons why is because North America is getting more inventories in oil. So Saudi Arabia is kind of getting competitive. So they have to cut the prices. And with the Russian oil sanctions, if that continues, so this is obviously working for the U.S. They're putting on the sanctions on Russia's oil, and Russia is completely in trouble. And if they can do it, OPEC would probably do even more, right? So even though this is completely ridiculous and we've seen really low prices on oil, there is a possibility that we can see even more drops in the oil prices.
Yeah, especially as everybody just tries to get away from it. That's kind of been a fear here, is everybody just dumping their positions and getting away. Even though I am noticing some of the bigger guys, they if you got a lot of money in this, you don't want to be, and you have a 5-year plan and something like this happens. Usually these guys don't try to dump their shares right away; they'll stick with it. So personally, I'm hoping to kind of see a base
and
here.
it doesn't help that several major economies like Eurozone and Japan, they are facing a bleak growth prospects. So because they could further weigh on the price levels as well. So everything is completely kind of contributing to the continuous lowering.
Yeah, it's definitely an entire mess, and that was another thing we were trying to highlight too, is some of the guys that are maybe holding different products that might be tied to oil as an underlying asset, and some of the problems that are being put out
Absolutely,
there,
yes,
so.
yes.
All right. What else do you have? You got any long-term views on Japan? Do you think that this Abenomics is actually going to work? You think they'll come back around, or is he going to end up just kicking inflation beyond control? And do you think maybe what happens in Japan might impact some of what the Fed's doing here? I know the Fed doesn't really tend to speak to stating that, oh, hey, we're going to respond this way because Japan's doing this, or the other banks are doing that. But what do you see happening in the future for Japan? And also after that, if you don't mind. What else are you trading currently at the moment?
Sure. So, long term, as I said, the Japanese emperor doesn't like Mr. Abe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this is something that was actually a shock to me because nobody talks about the Japanese emperor ever. They think he's just a symbolic person over there. But turns out, I was talking to some people who are very familiar with the fact he does have some impact, and he is gonna die very soon. So this is kind of dark, right? He's gonna die, and his son doesn't know the military. You know that America and Japan, they have some kind of military partnership. Well, after the World War II, that Japan is not allowed to have a military without Americans. And so we have the American base in Japan. So all this, when the Japanese emperor dies, this contract is going to be over, right? Because then the son is going to say, hey, like, I wasn't there. This didn't make much sense to me, but this is kind of like what I got. They were talking in Japanese. I do speak Japanese, but this is what I got about it. So after that, Japan is going to try so hard to come back, to make a comeback to the golden days of Japan when they were at the center of the universe, right? They are obviously very upset about the Chinese economy surpassing their economy. They were the second largest economy of the world for the longest time. And then China came in, and now they're doing a lot better. Well, yeah, last week we got some data that China is not doing as well as they were hoping, but everybody is moving into that direction. So Japan is going to try, and the minute they have this American partnership contract over, they're going to try and bring the Japanese yen, I would say so weak, because a weak Japanese yen, as I said again, it's going to be good for their exports. And they want to do, right now, Japan, how it's surviving when the yen got really strong, how it survived was basically on the domestic trades. So all the most of the fluctuations that we saw in the Japanese economy was because of the domestic how do you call it, the domestic purchases of the Japanese nation. So they would want to bring back exports. They would want to, Sony is out right now, as Samsung is becoming bigger. So most of the Japanese products are not doing well because of the previously very strong Japanese yen. So they would want to make the Japanese yen weaker. That is why longer term I'm seeing that the Japanese yen is getting actually a lot weaker. So that would mean for the dollar yen to rise high up.
Okay. All right, Kiana. Well, we're butting up against the time here, so we're gonna have to cut it off. But I appreciate your input on that. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and I wish you well trading the currencies in the future. And
thank you.
We'll be talking again soon,
Invest responsibly.
Thank you. All right, so traders and investors, that was Kiana Danial. She's a CEO of Invest Diva.